receiving wide receiver rankings. So the top 30 guys for the rest of the year here. And the first guy's Davante Adams of the Green Bay Packers. What a season it's been for Adams. This guy, he's a stud, and every week it seems like he finds the end zone and gets anywhere from 80 to 100 yards. I've been saying this for weeks now. Him and Rodgers, they're probably the best quarterback to receiver duo in all of the league. These guys, they've been doing it for years now. Adams is his right-hand man, and he gets the job done. And his upcoming schedule is pretty solid as well. He's got Philly Week 13, Week 14 at Detroit, Week 15 Carolina, and Week 16 for Adams. So Adams, all home run matchups. I wouldn't be surprised if he scores a touchdown in each of these ball games or has a big 150, 200-yard game. So Adams, he's number one. Number two, Tyreek Hill of the Kansas City Chiefs. He's been very consistent this year. Only one single-digit scoring fantasy game on the whole season for Tyreek Hill, and he's getting the job done as Hill. Hill last week with an insane game versus Tampa Bay with 270 yards and 3 touchdowns. This guy had 203 yards in the first quarter, and this guy, he could burn any secondary, he could burn any defense, and him and Mahomes right now, they're just on another level with their timing routes and the deep balls. And Tyreek Hill, his schedule's great as well. Week 13 Denver, Week 14 at Miami, Week 15 at New Orleans, and Week 16 versus the Atlanta Falcons. So he's going to feast the rest of the season. And versus those defenses, I expect big ball games out of him. Number 3, DK Metcalf of the Seattle Seahawks. This guy, he is a monster, and he reminds me of Calvin Johnson, just the way he plays and moves and the things he could do on the field. And we saw him last night on Monday Night Football have an insane game. 10 catches, 177 yards for DK, and he left some points out there as well. He dropped a touchdown in the end zone and then a couple other balls, so he easily could have had a 200-yard ball game in that one was Metcalf. And now his schedule is very nice. Week 13 the Giants, Week 14 the Jets, Week 15 at Washington, and Week 16 versus the LA Rams. So this guy, he gets the job done. He makes plays. He's in one of the top offenses of football, and he's going to be the third best receiver, or even better, the rest of the way. Number 4, DeAndre Hopkins of the Arizona Cardinals. Hopkins here, he's been slumping the last few weeks, but his talent, the quarterback he has, and just the plays he makes, this guy, he's got to be top 5 still in my opinion. And his schedule, it's not bad as well. He's got the Rams Week 13 at the Giants Week 14, Philly Week 15, San Francisco Week 16. So he's got 3 home games out of 4. He'll be indoors. You don't got to deal with the cold weather, and that's also a plus here, obviously, for anybody. If they play whatever position in football, being indoors on that turf, there's nothing like it. It's a faster track, and I think Hopkins, he'll break out of his slump anyway, and he'll do some work. Number 5, Keenan Allen of the Los Angeles Chargers. This guy, what a season it's been for him. It seems like he gets a touchdown or 10 or more catches each and every game. Keenan Allen and Justin Herbert, their rapport and their moves and the plays they're making are huge. And Keenan Allen now, he's going to have all the rest of his games indoors as well for the rest of the season from weeks 13 to 16. He's got New England in week 13. That'll be a tough matchup, kind of. He's going to have Stephon Gilmore on him in that ball game, I'm assuming. Week 14, Atlanta, they give up tons of fantasy points to wide receivers. Week 15, Vegas in Vegas, and then Week 16 versus Denver. So 2 divisional games Allen gets. Herbert and him, they're getting better as the weeks go on, like I said. And he's just a guy that you could put in the bank 20 to 25 points each and every week. Number 6, Stephon Diggs of the Buffalo Bills. It's been a great season for Diggs. His numbers have gone down a little of late, but him and Allen now, they know it's crunch time. They got to get the ball moving and this offense going. And now they got 3 out of 4 road games coming up. They're at San Francisco in Week 13, Pittsburgh Week 14, Denver Week 15 in Denver, and Week 16 at New England. Stephon Diggs, he's top 5 in fantasy points still for wide receivers. And like I said, the last few weeks he hasn't done much. But I think he's going to bounce back in the stretch run here, and he's going to help your fantasy team try to win these ball games and have a good rest of the season. Number 7, scary Terry McLaurin. This guy, he's one of the most underrated football players and receivers in all of football. His route running is almost second to none, and he's on a team where they're going to throw the ball a lot. McLaurin, it seems like each and every week he's getting a touchdown or over 100 yards. And his schedule, yeah, it's a little tough, but I still think he's going to be great the rest of the year. He's at Pittsburgh week 13, at San Francisco week 14, Seattle week 15, Carolina week 16. Yeah, it's tough matchups, but he could get a lot of garbage time points, and this guy, he's a tough cover for any corner in this league. So scary Terry, I'm not scared to put him here in the number 7 spot. He's been so consistent the whole season. It's time for this guy to get the recognition and to be ranked up here at 7. Number 8, A.J. Brown of the Tennessee Titans. This guy, ever since he came back from injury, he's a man beast, and teams, they can't stop him. He's got a touchdown in every game except for one in his last few ball games. So A.J. Brown, he's got a nose for the end zone. The way he runs route and he can break away for touchdown is effortless, the way Brown makes it look. And we saw it again versus the Colts, take a 70-yard basic slant route to the house. And now he's got great matchups coming up. Cleveland in week 13, week 14 at Jacksonville, week 15 Detroit, and week 16 Green Bay. He could have great games versus all those teams. Only week 16, he might have a tough battle with Jair Alexander on him. But besides that, this guy's a top 10 wide receiver the rest of the way, and no one's stopping him. His size, strength, and speed, this guy's something else. So A.J. Brown, I got him at 8. Number 9, Calvin Ridley of the Atlanta Falcons. It was nice to see Ridley now back the last 2 weeks and have pretty decent games. Nothing special, but he did have 17 fantasy points in PPR leagues this week. And now he's got a good matchups coming up versus New Orleans week 13, at the Chargers week 14, week 15 Tampa Bay, and week 16 at Kansas City. So another thing here, 3 dome games coming up. And like I said, nothing can beat that. You don't got to deal with the weather or whatever, slip or wet or sleek. So it's a good track for receivers. Ridley, he's one of the better route runners and receivers in the game. And him and Matt Ryan, they got that good connection going on. So I got Ridley at 9. Number 10, Justin Jefferson, the amazing rookie from the Minnesota Vikings. As the weeks go on, his stats go up and his play gets better. And we saw Jefferson again here with Adam Thielen out, score 2 touchdowns in that ball game, and a come from behind victory versus the Carolina Panthers. So Justin Jefferson, he's a nightmare for secondaries. He's quick. He knows how to run the route tree, and his schedule is very favorable as well. Week 13, Jacksonville. Week 14 at Tampa. Week 15, Chicago. Week 16 in New Orleans. So 3 out of 4 of his ball games also are going to be indoors. So that's just another plus to a already great receiver in Justin Jefferson. Number 11, Mike Evans. Some people might think he's high on this list, but Mike Evans, touchdowns each and every week it seems like, and he's still getting those double-digit fantasy points. With the touchdowns, he's been very consistent. He's making plays and getting the job done, and him and Brady, they got that red zone connection. Now if they can only get things going in the rest of the game, besides in the red zone, Evans, he would be higher, obviously. But here at 11, I think it's a good spot to put him, because he's just scoring touchdowns, and he's got 10 already on the season. We saw him again score versus Kansas City, and his remaining schedule, week 13, he's got a bye. Week 14, Minnesota. Week 15 in Atlanta. Week 16 at Detroit. It's a good schedule. He gets some rest this week, and I think this Buccaneer offense is going to explode once they come off the bye here in week 13. Number 12, Tyler Lockett of the Seattle Seahawks. He's had a couple monster games this year, but besides that, he's been quiet, but he's still in a great offense. He's still a good receiver. And these next few games, I think he could finally break out again and have some solid games. In week 13, he's got the Giants. Week 14, the Jets. 2 solid home games. Then week 15 at Washington. And week 16 versus the Rams. So Lockett, he's got a good schedule. Like I said, he's going to make some plays, I think. He's too good to only have 5 or 6 fantasy points, which he's done a few times now in the last few weeks. So Lockett, I think he's bound to bounce back, and him and Russ still get that connection going, because it's tough sometimes to get two great receivers going at the same time, like DK and Lockett. One game, one guy goes off and the other's mediocre. And that's what we've been seeing over there in Seattle. Number 13, Allen Robinson of the Chicago Bears. Robinson, he's looked pretty good now with Mitchell Trubisky in the lineup. And he had 2 touchdowns in that Green Bay game on Sunday Night Football. Hey, garbage time or not, you take it. This is fantasy football. Every point and every yard counts. And Robinson, he's been pretty solid on the year. He's 7th, I believe, in fantasy points for wide receivers, so he's having a good year. And he's got a good schedule coming up. Detroit, Week 13, Week 14, Houston, Week 15 at Minnesota, Week 16 at Jacksonville. Very favorable matchups. If Trubisky stays in at quarterback, that bumps his value up more, like I just said, and what we saw on Sunday Night Football versus Green Bay. So I like the outlook for Robinson here. He's a good route runner. He makes some plays, and he's a tough guy. So if Trubisky stays in there, he'll be very solid the rest of the way. Number 14, Adam Thielen of the Minnesota Vikings. He missed Week 12 because he was on the COVID list. But he should be back here. Thielen, his yards haven't been great this season, but he's another guy that just has a knack for the end zone. And he's got 8 touchdowns on the season as Thielen. And now he's got Jacksonville in Week 13, Week 14 at Tampa, Week 15 Chicago, and Week 16 at the Saints. I think Thielen, he's got a great schedule. Him and Jefferson, a great 1-2 punch. They could get things going, and they could find the end zone, is Thielen and Jefferson a lot down the stretch here, and the Vikings, they're in the playoff hunt. So I think Thielen, big things are still coming his way. So he's number 14. Number 15, Julio Jones. He's got the nagging hamstring injury all season long, and this is why I bumped him down here to the 15th slot. I don't know if he's going to be healthy. I don't know if he's even going to play that much more the rest of the season, especially the Falcons. They're pretty much out of the playoff hunt. But if he does play, the schedule's good. But like I said, I don't know if he'll be that efficient. So anyway, Week 13, New Orleans. Week 14 at the Chargers. Week 15, Tampa Bay. And Week 16 at Kansas City. All favorable matchups. This guy, he's a matchup nightmare. Most defenses can't stop him. The only thing stopping him is that hamstring this season. So he's number 15. Number 16, Michael Thomas. So the New Orleans Saints. Obviously, if Drew Brees was in the lineup, Thomas would be higher on this list. But Brees, he might come back Week 15 or 16. So that's going to, hurt his outlook here the next 2 weeks at least. Taysom Hill gave him a 100-yard game last week, but this week he only had a basic game, 5 catches for 54 yards as Thomas. And Thomas, he don't look the same like he did last season. This year, the injuries got him. He had a high ankle sprain and a hamstring injury, so he's probably not 100%. But anyway, his schedule, Week 13 in Atlanta, Week 14 in Philly, Week 15 Kansas City, and Week 16 Minnesota. Those are great matchups, but if this is Taysom Hill's offense, it's going to be a lot of running the ball, a lot of misdirection runs and read options with Hill, and not many opportunities, I believe, for Thomas, because we saw them get in the red zone twice last week, and you saw Hill just run it in himself, and we're going to see more of that. So I got Thomas at 16. Number 17, Diontae Johnson of the Pittsburgh Steelers. This guy's a target machine, and he's a tough guy to cover for many defenses, and he gets open with his great route running ability. The only thing with him, he disappears at times, and we've seen it 3 or 4 times where he's only had 2 or less fantasy points in a ball game. Plus, there's a lot of mouths to feed over there in Pittsburgh, so if Johnson was a little more consistent, he'd be up there more on this list. But he's got a great schedule coming up. 3 home games as well out of the next 4. Washington in Week 13, Week 14 Buffalo, Week 15 at Cincy, and Week 16 Indianapolis. So it's great games, good schedule, and hopefully he shows more consistency. And then this guy, he could put top 10 numbers up the rest of the way if he stays consistent. Number 18, Robert Woods of the Los Angeles Rams. Woods, he's been a pretty solid receiver for the last few seasons now. And this guy's a good route runner, good yard after catch guy, and he can make plays. And he's been doing that more than Cooper Kupp this season for this Ram offense, and he's got a pretty good lineup as well coming up schedule. Week 13 in Arizona, Week 14, that's going to be a tough one with Stephon Gilmore on it most likely. Week 15 the Jets, and Week 16 at Seattle. So this guy, he's making plays, he's getting open. I know Goff, he hasn't been that great this season, but besides that, Woods is still getting open and making his plays, and I think he's a perfect number 2 receiver for your fantasy teams the rest of the way. Number 19, Chris Godwin, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He's been banged up on and off this season, but when he does play, he's guaranteed 13 or more fantasy points in PPR leagues. So Brady, he likes Godwin as that route runner and that underneath guy who's going to make the tough catches in traffic and make plays. And Godwin, he's on bye in Week 13. Then he's got Minnesota Week 14, at Atlanta Week 15, and Week 16 at Detroit. So those are great games coming up. 2 out of the 3 are indoors. So he's going to make plays. And Brady, like I said, he relies on him as that underneath guy and traffic catcher. Number 20, Amari Cooper of the Dallas Cowboys. Believe it or not, Cooper, he's still having great ball games, even with Andy Dalton in there and a horrible offensive line with all 5 starters out of there now for Dallas. The schedule's middle of the pack for Cooper, though. He's at Baltimore in Week 13. That's going to be tough. Cincinnati, he's at Cincinnati Week 14. He'll make some plays there. Week 15, San Francisco, I still think he'll make plays. And Week 16, Philly. So 3 out of those 4 matchups are pretty decent for Cooper. Cooper, he's one of the better route runners in the league also. It don't matter who his quarterback is. This guy, he finds ways to get open, and he makes a lot of catches underneath, and he could also burn you deep, which we saw him do versus Washington on Thanksgiving. So Cooper as a number 2 receiver, he's perfect also the rest of the way, and he's been consistent most of the season. He's only had 2 bad games the whole year. One when Ben DiNucci was in, and one with Dak. It was just a bad ball game all around. But anyway, he's 20. Number 21, Chase Claypool of the Pittsburgh Steelers. This rookie, he's came out of nowhere, and he's having a monster season, and he's a guy that scores a touchdown pretty much every week. He's got 9 touchdowns already on the season is Claypool. And this guy, he's going to break a lot of rookie records, and he's going to keep scoring, and he's got a great offense he's in, and he's a guy that's a matchup nightmare. He could beat you deep, he could beat you underneath, he knows how to run the routes already as a rookie, and if he was, the number 1 there, and there weren't so many guys, he'd be higher on this list. But Week 13, Washington, Week 14, Buffalo, Week 15 at Cincinnati, and Week 16, Indianapolis. This guy, you probably picked him up on the wire when he went off, and this guy next year, he's going to be a top 3 or 4 round pick, and he's going to be great. He's going to have a monster season the next few years, I believe, if he stays healthy. But I'm going to keep him here as a number 2 wide receiver and ranked 21. Number 22, Kenny Golladay of the Detroit Lions. I don't know if Galladay's coming back, but this guy, he's a beast when he does play. It seems like he gets almost 100 yards every time he plays. He was sitting out now the last few weeks with that hip injury. So hopefully now with another 10 days off, he'll come back in Chicago at Week 13. Then he's got Green Bay Week 14. They'll have Alexander on him. That'll be a tough matchup. Week 15 at Tennessee. Week 16 at Tampa. So Kenny Golladay, he's going to have good ball games, I believe, as long as he plays. Hopefully he's healthy and gets on the field. So I was conservative here with him at number 22, and he's a guy that hopefully comes back an injury, and he's a good number 2 receiver and helps you get into the playoffs and possibly win the whole thing. Number 23, Brandon Cooks, he's bumped up the list, not a lot, but a little now, with the news coming down yesterday that Will Fuller got suspended 6 games for PED use, and now he's the number 1 man over there is Cooks. Cooks, he's been decent this year. He's had some big games and some dud games, and I think he'll be mediocre this season. He's a perfect number 2 receiver now. The rest of the way, he's got Indianapolis Week 13, Week 14 at Chicago, Week 15 at Indianapolis, again they verse, and Week 16 Cincinnati. So pretty decent matchup. He's got great quarterback in Deshaun Watson, who's still going to be a top 5 quarterback even without Fuller the rest of the way, in my opinion. And this guy, he still finds ways to get opens, and he's a vet, so he'll be good as a number 2. Number 24, Robbie Anderson of the Carolina Panthers. Anderson, he's been doing his thing, and he's been getting open this season. And Anderson, he's got double-digit fantasy games in 10 out of the 12, and the Jets should have never let this guy go. He could run underneath. He could run the routes. He came out as a burner out of college, but now he's learning how to run the routes and play receiver even better, and Teddy Bridgewater's getting him the ball. It's a contract year as well for Anderson, and I think he's going to finish strong here versus Denver in Week 14 after he's got the bye in Week 13, at Green Bay Week 15, and at Washington. So this guy, he's a gamer. He can run, and he can make plays. I like Robbie Anderson at number 24. Number 25, Juju Smith-Schuster. I think he's the third wheel out of those receivers right now in Pittsburgh, and we've seen him have some mediocre to bad ball games this season, and then he hurt that foot a little in Week 12 is Juju. In Week 11, Week 12, we'll see what happens at this ball game Wednesday night, if this game's going to happen or what. But anyway, Juju, like I said, he seems like he's third in that pecking order. Johnson gets the most targets. Then Claypool, I think he's most in points right there. Then Juju. But Juju, he's in a contract year too. He's still a good receiver. He's a number 2 to flex. He's on that fringe right now. And his schedule's Washington Week 13, Week 14 Buffalo, Week 15 at Cincinnati, and Week 16 Indianapolis. So that's his schedule the rest of the way. And we'll see what he does. Number 26, Cooper Kupp. The Los Angeles Rams, he's been inconsistent this season. He's had a few monster games and a few dud games. So right here, he's good at 26, I feel like. He's still a starter there. He's still going to have some big games as well. And some games he'll have duds. In Week 13, he's at Arizona. Week 14, New England. Week 15, the Jets. And Week 16 at Seattle. So he's got a couple division games thrown in there with an easy matchup versus the Jets, which I think that's the week where he'll probably have his biggest game for the rest of the year. In Week 15 is Kupp, and Kupp, he's a guy you just got to play each and every week, because like I said, he could have that big breakout game, and you don't want that guy sitting on your bench unless you got better options than him here at wide receiver. Number 27, T. Higgins of the Cincinnati Bengals. These guys, him and Tyler Boyd, they took a big hit. Both these guys were having great seasons with Joe Burrow on the center, but it was nice to see Higgins, even with Brandon Allen on the center versus the Giants in Week 12, find the end zone. And now his schedule the rest of the way at Miami, Dallas, Pittsburgh, at Houston. So 3 out of those 4 matchups are pretty solid for him to get some more fantasy points and find the end zone is Higgins. This guy, he's a good receiver, and he's well polished as well in his rookie year. So I think Higgins, he could be good the rest of the way, and he could get a touchdown every other game, I believe. Number 28 was staying in Cincinnati. It's his teammate, Tyler Boyd. Boyd, he's one of the better route runners in the game as well, but I think Higgins, he's going to have more of an opportunity to be better than him. That's why I put Higgins ahead of him. Higgins, he can have more explosive plays. Boyd, he's more that underneath guy who's going to get you 7-8 catches for 80 yards in a ball game. And his schedule obviously the same at Miami, Week 13, Week 14 Dallas, Week 15 Pittsburgh, and Week 16 at Houston. So both these receivers, they probably would have been in the upper 20s in my rankings for the rest of the year if Joe Burrow was there. But these guys, they're still useful as number 2 to flex options here the rest of the way is Boyd and Higgins. Number 29, Devontae Parker of the Miami Dolphins. Parker, he plays better. It's obvious when Ryan Fitzpatrick is in the lineup, and we saw him in Week 12 get tons of targets and make tons of plays, even though it was versus a weak Jet defense. With Tua in the lineup, his numbers went down drastically, where he had 2 single-digit fantasy games. So Parker, I'm keeping him here at 29 because I think Tua, worst case, he comes back Week 14. He might miss Week 13 versus Cincinnati, but Parker's remaining schedule, Cincinnati, Kansas City, New England, and at Vegas. So most of those games, they should be good weather. He's got 3 home games in a row. Then they go into the Dome in Vegas, which is good. So that's a good thing for Parker. But I just think if 2 is starting 3 out of these 4 games, it's going to hold Parker's value out. And he's a guy, maybe every other week you're going to start him, because he's not going to be an every week starter, I believe, with Tua in there at the lineup. And 30th and final guy I'm ranking here is Corey Davis of the Tennessee Titans. This guy, he's come on in a big way since he came off the COVID list a few weeks ago, and he's put up double-digit fantasy points in 5 out of his last 6 games. This guy's a big target. He was a big prospect out of college, and now with him and A.J. Brown over there and Tannehill feeding these guys the ball, it's one of the better 1-2 receiver combos in all of football. On this 30th spot, there was a couple guys here I was putting Davis around. It was him, CeeDee Lamb, Christian Kirk. He was in the running. But Corey Davis, I think here, he's better than those guys, because on Kirk, he's more of a deep all or nothing. So anyway, Davis's remaining schedule: Cleveland week 13, at Jacksonville week 14, week 15 Detroit, and week 16 at Green Bay. Pretty good schedule. He's in one of the better offenses of all of football, and the coverage rolls to A.J. Brown, and obviously they stack the box versus Henry. So Davis, he's getting a lot of one-on-one coverage, and he's been beating it now in most of the weeks. So that's the top 30 wide receivers rest of the season rankings in fantasy football.